All right, good evening. I call this regular meeting to order at 6:34 PM on Monday, April 7th. We will have the Pledge of Allegiance led by Commissioner Lotz.
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America,
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, Ms. Adrian, please call the roll.
Commissioner Lotz,
Here.
Commissioner Rodriguez,
Present.
Vice Chair Barantes,
Present.
Chair Dong,
Present.
Youth Ambassador Fawn,
Present.
Youth Ambassador Zhao.
Present.
We've got a full quorum today. Great. Now we're moving on to the approval of the agenda order. Are there any objections to the agenda order? Hearing none, the agenda order is approved. So next, we'll have a few announcements by Community Services Assistant Director Matthew Morales-Stevens.
Thank you. Tonight's meeting is live streamed on Cable Channel 3 and our online platforms. If you wish to address the Community Services Commission during tonight's meeting, we request that you please complete a speaker's card and hand it to the clerk, Adrian Franquez. When speaking, please state your name for the record. If you wish to be added to the distribution list to receive Community Services Commission agendas, please email your request to cscommission@sgch.org.
This is the time set aside for members of the public to address the Community Services Commission on items of interest that are not on the agenda, but are within the subject matter jurisdiction of the commission. Pursuant to the Brown Act, the Community Services Commission cannot answer any questions or take any action until such time as the matter may appear as an item on a future agenda. Adrian, do we have any public comments for tonight's meeting?
Yes, we do. We have a public comment by George Young.
Good evening. My name is George Young. I'm a head coach for San Gabriel Seagulls. I wear many hats, and that's one of my hats that I wear. Usually, I would come into a lot of these meetings, but the last couple of years have been really a challenge since it started at 6:30 instead of 7. I apologize for that, but I see all new faces. I don't know any of you, so it's good to see. It's good to see a good turnover. The San Gabriel Seagulls is a year-round age group swim team that actually started off back in the 1950s as a community program swim team for the summer only. Back in 1991, I came back from being a pool manager. I came back and started a year-round swim team. And we were independent from the city, although we do get support, and we work hand in hand with the city of San Gabriel. A little bit of history, since we got new members here, so I want to make sure you don't think I'm some stranger off the street. Seagull's been going good. We're approaching 35 years, so we're very happy about that. It's been some valleys and been some really high peaks, so we appreciate all that. And all the way through it, our home-based pool has been Smith Park Pool, and we're very happy for that. And there's always challenges. Just recently with Gabriel High School swim team, that's always a challenge. Dealing with an old pool, that's always a challenge. I was thinking about maybe a right term, and I just decided to use old pool because I think maybe that just fills the bill. As far as that goes. Seagulls had just completed their short course season, which is the fall-winter season. We completed that in March. We had a very good season. Our 11-12 boys made some great strides, made some great marks in the San Gabriel Valley. So our future's looking good with some good 13-14 girls and some awesome 11-12 boys. And our long course season is just starting right now. which the difference between short course and long course is not just the time of the year, but it's also short course is 25 yards to go inside with high school swimming and college swimming. And now we go into the long course phase, which is 50-meter pools, which the Olympics and a lot of the elite USA swimming meets are held for 50-meter pools. So I just wanted to introduce myself and give you a little update on the Seagulls, and hopefully I can come more. I used to come a lot, and I apologize for that, but I'm working on it. I'm working on it. So thank you all for being here and supporting the city. I know you guys are volunteers, so that's great. And it's nice to see new people and to keep it going. And both Matthew, I know Matthew, I can't say more good things about Matthew. Andy is starting to grow on me. No, I'm just kidding. No, Andy's good too. Andy's good. Andy's a good guy too. So we're in good hands. Okay, bye-bye.
Thank you. Can we have any questions for him, if we have any questions, or should we?
If this was like a council meeting where we have a bunch of people lined up, I wouldn't advise it, but if you wanted to do a one-off, you certainly can.
Okay, sure. Well, thank you so much for giving your presentation tonight. Let me just ask the commissioners if there are any questions or comments about the Seagulls.
No, but thanks for the update.
I can just be thankful for the Seagulls. My girls actually went 3 years ago. Khaleesi and Scarlett joined your team for the fall-winter season in 20. But that's right. They liked it. It's just that the timing was tough, but thank you. I appreciate your leadership on the team development.
So in terms of the Seagulls, it's independent agency from the city. They don't receive any city funding.
Correct. It is a nonprofit separate from the city. They receive a different fee schedule than other organizations. Same with the San Gabriel Unified has a different fee schedule because they do provide such a much needed community service that isn't something that our department necessarily has the ability to do. And everyone has such an enjoyable time, and George and his team do a great job of communicating with Andy and communicating with residents as to what those needs are and keeping everyone safe and doing all of their programming above board. It's kind of the best way to put it. Anything with aquatics takes 10 times more work than anything else in recreation. And he and his team do a great job of going through all of those steps and making sure that everyone is safe and having a fun time.
And so again, they rent the pool just like Gabriel High School rents the pool?
Correct.
Okay, so that's the fee schedule you're referring to. Okay. So this is actually my first time hearing about this organization. I guess my kids are too young to try out for your teams, but maybe a little bit of, is there a website that the public can go on if they have any questions? And do you have a tryout schedule that's listed as well? It's in the grapevine, I see.
Yes, it is. It's in the grapevine. We do have a website and all that, so that if you go on the website, it pretty much will help you out there.
Great.
There's also a contact information, so if you need more information, so.
These are for people that already know how to swim, right?
There is a swim test, so they do have to be at a certain level.
Okay. You guys don't offer any kind of just basic swim lessons? Okay.
No, we leave that to the city and the other agencies in the area.
Okay.
Okay?
And at what age can students start to
They
try
have to be at
out?
least 5. Usually it's around 7 or 8 when they join, but according to USA Swimming, we're in the umbrella for United States Swimming, the largest swimming organization in the world, and their minimum age is age 5.
Age 5, okay, great. Well, thank you so much again. Look forward to seeing you in future meetings.
Thank you.
All right. So we're moving on to the approval of minutes. First of all, are there any other public comments, or was that the only one?
There are no further public comments.
Okay. The minutes are a record of the official actions taken at the Community Services Commission regular meeting of March 3rd, 2025. Matthew, do we have any public comments on the action item?
We do not.
The time for public comment on this item is now closed. Is there a motion to approve the minutes of the Community Services Commission regular meeting of March 3rd, 2025?
A motion to approve?
Is there a second?
I second.
Adrian, can you take the vote?
Yes. Commissioner Lotz?
Aye.
Commissioner Rodriguez? Vice Chair Barantes?
Aye.
Chair Dong?
Aye.
Motion passed by a vote of 4 ayes, 0 nays, and 0 abstentions.
Wonderful. Now we're moving on to the discussion items section of the agenda. We have a presentation of outreach efforts presented by the City Public Information Officer. We've been waiting for this. We're really excited to have her come here today. Staff will provide the commission with an update on the ongoing outreach efforts performed by the city's public information team, and the presentation will include how events are promoted, our social media marketing program, communication statistics, and more. Thank you.
Good evening, Commissioners and Youth Ambassadors. My name is Ileana Flores, and I'm also here for the first time meeting all of your faces, and I've only been with the city for 7 months, so pleasure meeting all of you. I will give you a little bit of history of where my background is, but I just want to thank you for giving me this opportunity because, of course, as public information officers, we absolutely hate presenting and telling everybody what we do and how we get our word across to our city. Next slide, please. So we are a large team of 2 people. I am the assistant to the city manager, but I also serve as the PIO, the Public Information Officer. I've actually had about 12 years of experience in the public information world. I've had the privilege of working for other agencies like the City of LA, the City of Duarte, the City of Temple City, where I previously was, and public service, and of course, being the communicator has been my passion. A fun fact about me is I also have my own business on the weekends. I am a photographer. So my 2 worlds collide, and I think it's the fun side of government where I can use my skills in photography and highlight our city with them. And I also have Jessica Zhao. She is my public information assistant. Wonderful. She is the brain of all the amazing reels that you see on our platforms. And I like to jokingly say we are the dream team, but I think that we do a lot for being a 2-person division. So next slide, please. All right, so what does the Public Information Office do? So we are the central hub for information for our residents. We are the people that get the information out there, whether if it's a program, a project, an event, any type of initiative. The fun part about our jobs is that we have to be really creative about how we deliver good, bad news, and a little bit in between. And of course, community services relies heavily on us to promote events or any information that we need to get out there. Now, when I say we're a small and mighty team, we also assist with the PIO responsibilities for not just the city, but for our police department, and we also provide assistance for our fire department. So we stay busy, but it's a ton of fun. Next slide, please. So just a quick overview of what our communications division does. We provide a lot of training for internal staff. We recently did a training where we went out there and we had 2 representatives from each department, and we just trained them on how they can produce good content that we can then utilize to use for our social media platforms. It was a great training. We are always assisting other trainings ourselves where we actually just came back from the Capio conference. It was in Napa, where we met with about 600 other public information officers from all over California, and we had crisis emergency training and just how to become better communicators. In the communications divisions, we also oversee the entire website. So we always have departments asking us, can you fix this broken link or can you put this up on the website? But I'm pretty proud of how well trained a lot of our internal staff is, where they can handle their own pages within their own division. So we provide assistance only when it's certain parameters that they cannot reach. So we also promote events. We provide a lot of internal graphic design, and by that I mean we do a lot of Canva, but we do a lot of internal design ourselves. We oversee all of our press releases, so we're constantly getting information not just to our residents, but to our media platforms. And creating a lot of press conferences. The recent one that we just did was actually for our Lantern Festival. Next slide, please. We create a lot of talking points and speeches for our elected officials, for our mayor. We do a lot of publications, so we work with community services to do the first couple of pages of our Discover magazine. And we provide PIO support, like I previously mentioned, for our police and fire department. And we oversee the entire social media policy. So we have to make sure that every single post, there's legalities to everything. So we have to make sure that it meets our policy and what we can and cannot post. And it's our job to also educate our internal staff and other stakeholders of what the city can post and what we could support and what we cannot. And of course, we also oversee all of our social media platforms, Facebook, Instagram. We get a lot of message on the daily asking for assistance or like, hey, I have a broken tree fell in my front yard, can we get it cleaned up? So we are responsible for funneling that information to our departments. Because we live in today's age where everybody just sends a quick message on social media and we send it out so that we can get the job done. So we get, on an average, maybe anywhere between like 10 to 30 messages a day from residents communicating to the city directly on what the issues are or questions that they may have. Next slide. All right, so specifically for Community Services Department, what we do is promote events. We do have bi-weekly meetings with internal staff so that we can stay communicated and know what needs to be published on our social media platforms, if a press release needs to be drafted, or if we could put any additional information in other channels. We do collaborate with some graphic design if maybe a certain flyer doesn't meet the parameters of our social media posting. And we do collaborate as well with paid advertisement. So maybe there's an event where it's not getting a lot of traction, as much traction as we wanted it to on social media. We work with staff to see if we could fund it through our budget to create an advertised ad and set the parameters to target the right residents that we want to attend for the event. So here are just some quick screenshots we provided of some of the posts that we've done in the past. Jessica and I really take into consideration when our hot hours to post, meaning when the traction will come its best for the social media posting. So that's the fun side in terms of not just posting, there's more to just clicking the post, is analyzing the analytics when it's best to post for our community, when our community is more on social media so that it gets that traction. Next slide, please. And here are some current projects that we have been working on and are continuing to work on. So we recently got done with State of the City. No problem. So we recently got done with State of the City. We worked with Rate 88 Media to get that through video. Now she'll be posted later on this week, so I invite you all to view it if you want to see what our cities did for the last year. We're also working with our Community Development Division on a small business marketing program, which is extremely exciting. In a nutshell, we are providing free marketing to all of our local businesses in San Gabriel. So with my experience in photography, Jessica and I provide free marketing for the businesses where we select businesses. We stay about 3 hours there. We photograph, whether if it's food or any things that they might sell. So we provide professional photography, we create a reel, and we highlight them on a city's social media platform, and they get a beautiful gallery delivered to them through a link. So we're working on that, and we've had some pretty amazing feedback, so we're hoping to expand that this year. And then we're currently working on a very exciting website revamp. Our website is a little bit outdated, and there's a lot of room for improvement. So it's going to be about a 6 to 8 month project, but we are very excited to give it a fresh look and just make it a little bit more accessible for our residents. And I believe that is it for today, and I'm more than happy to answer any questions you may have.
Yeah. Round of applause. Thank you so much for producing this presentation and coming tonight to talk to us about the work of the PIO office. I should say office, but at the same time, you guys are doing a lot with just 2 people. So, and you're the assistant to the general manager, so it's a lot of different hats. Are there any questions about the presentation or comments?
Yeah, first of all, I think that marketing you do for the small businesses is amazing. I mean, you have to do a lot to be a small business owner, and then if you're not well versed in that, that's excellent service that you provide. I know a lot of people reach out through social media. Is there a preferred way that you want residents to reach out to you?
Well, we have different outlets, right? But I think what is great about social media is that we're so accessible, right? So for us, there's no preferred. I mean, we do have a form online on our website where they could be do more of a resident concern, but that's the accessibility that we're given in 2025, where we could easily have that connection with our residents. Jessica and I are even answering messages really late at night at times, but at least it shows that transparency that we have and that accessibility, and I think that's what we take pride in, that we answer right away.
That's great. That's going above and beyond to be on at night. So thanks for that. What about LinkedIn? Is there any type of presence on LinkedIn for the city?
Yes, but that's mainly utilized to promote vacancies that we have or job opportunities for the city, but we do have that available.
Got it.
First off, I want to say hello. I'm a fellow photographer as well. Weekend, so I'll get your information after this.
Yes.
But I did want to ask, and I know I had talked to Matthew and Rebecca about possibly getting a awareness about drivers not stopping for school bus
Yes.
when the stop sign's out.
Yes.
Happens all the time when my son's getting picked up and dropped off. They just blatantly just drive. Even the bus driver's like, wow, it's just the bus stop has a red flashing light and just it's obvious, but no one stops. So I don't know what we would
Yes,
have to
I
do.
could actually give you an update on that.
Oh.
So 2 weeks ago, we were a little caught up with State of the City. And then the following week, we left on our training for the Capio conference. But Jessica and I are working on creating an educational video. We did have a meeting internally about it already, so we're already working on creating an educational video. We're also working with our police department to make sure that we get the right message. So you should be seeing that posted by next week in terms of safety rules when it comes to a bus stop sign.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
but thank you for bringing that to our attention. So.
Okay, no problem. Yeah, I understand that not all the drivers going through are in San Gabriel, but as long as we can get something out within our own city, that's
Yes.
great.
And then another update on that is I know our police department has been patrolling that area more because we heard about that happened. So it's more of the educational component that's missing on our social media platforms.
Okay, sounds good. That's all I'd ask.
So I think one of the reasons why we wanted to have you come and talk to us today is because there was a lack of knowledge about how we push out information to the public and, what we do as the Community Services Department and Commission versus what PAO does, particularly with regards to events that are being canceled. I think we had rolled out like a text messaging system, an SMS campaign that I don't know how that's going, but sort of, do you want to talk about how you sort of work with the other departments to make sure that it's all kind of integrated? Because from a resident standpoint, they don't know the difference really
Correct.
between department and PIO, so.
So besides our social media platforms, we also do have a weekly newsletter that residents could register to receive. It's actually on our homepage, I believe. But on the backside, what we're doing besides studying the algorithm, if we see something that's not getting a lot of traction, that's when we move forward to what we call our following phases, whether if it's paid advertisement or we give it another shout out on stories or just publicizing it as much as we possibly can. There's been always dialogue from other departments where they tell us, you know what, Ileana, we haven't had enough registrations. Can we give it another push? So that we're just always kind of looking for different ways that we can get the message across. But we do a great job at getting Discover magazine out pretty early in terms of advertising the event. So that's kind of the very tactile hard copy that the resident receives right at home from the magazine. Then you have your social media platforms. But looking on the back end of our social media platforms, we have a pretty nice range following in terms of age groups. So our age groups range between 16 to 52 years old, which is pretty awesome for the size of our city. But yeah, we're always looking for ways, if there's any suggestions if from the community or from our commissioners or for staff, that we could better ourselves and get our information out there, we're more than welcome to. But I will say I'm pretty happy and about the good connection and good communication that we have with our departments to get that information across.
Well, I guess a couple of follow-up questions. You said paid advertisements, and you mentioned stories. So were you talking about Facebook only, or are you also doing Google ads?
We do both.
Okay.
We don't do Google ads. We do a lot of advertisement through Facebook and through Instagram.
Okay, and that tends to, I think, one of the mission items for us is actually to reach diverse audiences within San Gabriel, and there might be, I can imagine, like my mom, for instance, she doesn't follow stories, she doesn't go on Instagram, right?
Right.
And we had talked briefly about WeChat and some of these more ethnic media. Have you looked into getting more of the information about events and programs from the Community Services Department through those outlets?
Yes, so in the past, we used to use WeChat, but full transparency, just because there's been that lack of language barrier, but it's something that we could definitely look into.
Right, and TikTok, I would imagine. is
Yes.
Another.
The city doesn't have a TikTok account, but we could definitely look into WeChat.
Out of curiosity, understanding the population of the city, what is our current reach in terms of the media channels that we have? So do each channel that we have pretty much cover the population in terms of all age ranges, or what's our reach percentage?
That's a tough question to answer because I don't know exactly how many people from our community follow our social media platforms. But for instance, if we're looking at it, I guess the only way I could answer that is in terms of engagement and the number of following that we have. I believe on Instagram we have a little bit over 1,000 followers, 7,000 followers, which is pretty good for our size city. And then on Facebook we have over 5,000. But I could base it off based on the level of engagement that we get and the interactions, and it's pretty high. For us, posting in the evenings is when we get our most traction. But I would have to look at it. I could follow up in terms of to answer fully your question. But if I'm answering just based off that, then it's at a good, happy place.
And the reason why I ask, because I know, for example, for us that are more active in the community, there still, I would say, maybe 1 or 2 out of 5 that we would be missing in terms of the communication. So I can imagine how it would be for people we want to reach that are not active. So that's why I wanted to know how much of the specific demographic or population have we actually reached and what specific channel we use. Because that way, even for us, in terms of us helping out in trying to decide about specific programs, that we would know what and how to be able to reach them. Does that make sense?
No, it makes complete sense. Yeah. You know, just like anything, we would love in a perfect world to be our entire community to be engaged. That would be a dream of mine, that I can specifically target and contact every single person that lives in San Gabriel. That would be like, I would be the #1 PIO in the country. But I think for us it's about adapting and finding different creative ways. And I think that conference we just returned from was such an eye-opener of different ways that you can promote events. There's new platforms now that I didn't even know existed. So we're hoping to be able to utilize those creative ways in the next couple of months to just continue growing our reach. And just a simple example, during the fires, even though we weren't directly affected by them, we had a few trees that collapsed, we had power outages. But we produced such great content that the amount of feedback that we got, not just from San Gabriel residents, our graphics were being shared so much that people were saying, wow, I wish this was my city. This is like the best, most solid information I've gotten of updates, because people were wondering, is the water safe to drink? Right? So Jessica and I were working on seeing what the county was posting, just seeing what we wanted to deliver good, solid, concrete information. So it was like we weren't posting constantly, but when we did post, we posted really informational material that would just bring some ease to the community. So again, it's just about getting creative and continuing to stay informed on our end.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for being so informational, but I was wondering, what is your main stream of information? Like, where do you get all the information from, or do you just have to keep staying updated through emails? Like, for instance, just like how you talked about the fires, during the 18 fires, I noticed the city social media page was extremely active on posting posts regarding some streets that were closed down, try to wear masks because the air quality was super bad.
Yes.
And I noticed that you guys were getting like posted out really fast, so I was wondering how you were able to do that in such a short and hectic time.
That's very kind of you to say, so thank you. Jessica and I follow specific platforms where we can get solid, concrete information. We also set parameters, so think of it as putting keywords that if certain things pop up, we get notified. We follow pretty much every city that you could think of in the San Gabriel Valley. We follow just different platforms, but we have our sources, of course, and then with the media as well. So it's a complicated question to ask, but most of the good, solid information we were getting is from our internal staff because we know what's happening within our city. If a tree falls down, then we have our public works team. So our executive team is amazing at communicating and funneling the information to us. In times of something like this is called crisis communication. So we know who are the key people within our city to deliver that information to us and for us to get it approved by that person to make sure that we're delivering the correct information and the right facts.
Hi, I just want to say thank you for doing what you do. I get most of my information from Instagram, so I'm that 16, from 16 to 52 years old demographic. So I was just wondering, like, you said that you don't use TikTok for the city, so I was wondering if you were ever considering using TikTok, and if you were, I think, like, you guys do a lot for two people. Would you guys be considered to, like, opening your team up to like students so that they can maybe help you out with like more social media platforms so you can reach a wider audience?
That's a great point. Opening up TikTok, it's not that we haven't thought about it. It's just we haven't had the time. We are a two-person team. But I think if we were opening it up with students, that's a little bit outside of my my control. But I think from my understanding is that our city manager and our council has been contacted regarding some potential youth ambassador or intern programs, but I think that's still in the developing phase. I'm not sure where it's currently at, but that's a great idea.
Yeah, thank you so much for those comments. I think, sort of what I would like to stress in terms of the work plan for us is, reaching diverse audiences. Is there a way we can target more ethnic media, something that's more Spanish language based or Mandarin Chinese or Vietnamese? There's a large population who don't, understand English as their first language, and so is there a way to reach those audiences? And then secondly, also part of the work plan for us was to connect different parts of the city because, when I looked at some of our commission terms are being up for renewal, and so when I looked at where everyone lived, vast majority of commissioners live around like Las Tunas, and I think I'm the only person actually who lives like more closer to South San Gabriel, and there are parks out there too. So what are some ways that you think we can engage that population? Who are a lot of multifamily housing, a lot more families. What are ways that we can target that audience so that they're coming out to events and registering for programs and participating in the city?
Yes, and I do want to, I know our community services team does a great job at translating a lot of the flyers, so they do that internally. But in terms of media, we have a great relationship with World Journal that does an amazing job at promoting a lot of our events. example, when we did the Lantern Festival, they did a phenomenal job, and the community really showed up for that event. In terms of on our end, on the communication side, we do have a great relationship with our media outlets, to the point where we have direct contact names to Univision, Telemundo, World Journal. So we have created those partnerships with them. The last couple of events, we've had a lot of presence. I think one of our recent events, we had a lot of media attend, but we have usually anywhere between 2 to 5 media outlets show up to whenever we do press conferences or actual events, because I'm with the mayor usually performing the interviews. So in terms of media coverage, it's pretty good. But of course, it could be a little bit better. So I will definitely do my homework and see your strategic plan and see where we can take it from there.
Yeah, and it's, sort of not just about covering the event itself, but, spreading the word so that they know when the events are happening, they know what programs are out there, they're going to the senior events, are there ways to engage them, whether it's for Telemundo or World Journal. In terms of the events itself, now, what we used to do as commissioners, and predates you guys, was, well, not you and me, but we used to volunteer for some of the events and hand out surveys. And I think one of the things that we had thought about for the surveys was to ask, well, where are you coming from? Do you live in San Gabriel, or are you coming from Rosemead or Alhambra? Is there a way for us to get a better demographic of who actually attends the events? Are these San Gabriel residents? And, household size, income, all of that? Is there a way that we can kind of do?
There are platforms we can utilize for surveys. I think what would make the process a little bit easier on our communications division would be if it's a event that requires some type of registration, because that question could be answered there. And then the questions could also be answered if we have like a survey team the actual day of the event. So targeting it from both angles would be really helpful on our side.
Yeah, I mean, something that's kind of, easy, sort of, high touch, for us to just get better information about who's coming out to these events, right? And that's,
Definitely.
we want to make sure that we keep on growing the attendance as well as making sure we hit the core needs of the community. I think the last thing from my end was, in terms of emergency communications, I think that's how we started talking about SMS campaigns. How do you work with the department when, during the really hot summer, if the pool happens to be closed because of a seagull event or because of something else, how do you get the word out to residents that the pool's not open for service, even if it's, it's during those hours when it's supposed to be open?
Okay. So what we do internally to make that process is we have toolkits for a lot of things. So toolkits, I mean pre-made graphics for any type of PSAs, public information. So what we have is, if something were to happen like that, I am very accessible. I'm always on call as a public information officer. So if the pool were to not be available, there just needs to be a message sent to me so that I can create the graphic anywhere I am through my phone and post it. So I have 24-hour access to all of our platforms. I could send press releases from my cell phone. So I have all the tools that I need to get that information out there. Now, let's say that for some reason I am not present, then that's where Jessica would step in. So that's why it's really important to at least have 2 people on the team. So if one is out sick, traveling, we have that backup. And for in terms of the graphic, before we post anything that's maybe time sensitive, or if there's very sensitive information, we always send it to that department to get the approval before it gets posted. Because the last thing that we want is posting something and then saying, sorry, that information was incorrect. So for stuff like that, we've had situations where we have to get something out posted quick. If I were to say from the time that it gets requested to the time it actually gets posted, it could be done within 10 minutes. So pretty quick. We, if you were to ask me that a few years back, I would say maybe it would take half an hour, but we have a lot of tools now that allows us to do it that quick and easy.
Great. And is there an SMS campaign that you actively use as well for residents to reach them at their phones?
Yeah, so we also utilize Nixle. I'm not sure if any of you have the Nixle alerts on your phone, and if you do not, I highly encourage you that you do. But things that you'll see on Nixle, I also have access to that, as well as our fire MPD. If street closures happen, anything that, a message that needs to get out fast, we have access to that through our cell phone. So I've done that when I was with the city of Doherty, when we had to send evacuation warnings, when there was flooding, when there was mudslides. So hopefully, knock on wood, we don't never get any of that here in San Gabriel, but we do have access to that. If a quick message that, if it's just advisory, if it's something serious.
I think just to follow up on that point, I think the staff had looked into that last year, and what they found was with Nixle, we would only be able to publish information that's related to police or fire, whereas for city events, we weren't actually allowed to publish anything with using the SMS system, which is why they had to then devote resources developing their own SMS campaigns. So is there a better way, sort of you guys can work together so that you're not duplicating efforts, or?
Most definitely. Most definitely. That's something that we could discuss in our next meeting.
In line with that last point, are there any projects to promote specific platforms so that people will be on it? Like, let's say, hey, everyone be on that platform, SMS platform, or I don't know, try to reach a certain.
Are you talking about like specifically like Nixle or?
Yeah, or any other platform to.
Yeah, it's constantly being promoted on flyers or social media platforms. It's on our homepage to register for that. So it's a pretty standard service that most cities utilize, but we have different channels as well. So depending like different groups that we want to target when we send a certain message out, but yeah, that's the only thing I can think of in terms of Nixle.
I guess that's why the information would come in for us to be able to see which demographic uses what platform, right?
Correct.
Thank you.
Going back to small businesses, I think it's great how the city is filming content for them at no cost and also giving them the extra boost that they need in order to thrive. But I was wondering if these small businesses find you, or does the city find them? And if possible, can you share the success rate?
I love that. That's a great question. So yes, to answer your first part of your question, the city reaches out to certain businesses, but then word's starting to get around, so now businesses are reaching out to us. We also put out a campaign on the last issue of Discover magazine, and it's translated into Chinese, Spanish, and it's also in English, where it describes what the entire campaign and what it includes. So it says that it's up to a $500 campaign for free, what the business owner is responsible for providing, meaning their cooperation, items or their food items that they want to be able to highlight. And then we schedule a phone call with them where we tell them kind of how the whole process starts from start to finish. We show up with backdrops, with lighting, with cameras, and we really highly encourage to tell the business owners to tell the story, why their business is here, how they started their business. And we use that story to create a reel about it. So not only are we giving them the actual content that they could utilize to publish on their social media platforms or their websites or their flyers, but we're also telling their story. So we did it for Pulcianos, and then we did it for Lily. I'm sorry, I'm butchering the name, but it's a business that's close to where Paris Baguette is. We just got a new community development manager that started about 2 weeks ago. So we are starting those meetings to have that assistance now. So we're going to have 2 additional people helping us gather all of the new businesses. So the success rate has been great. A lot of them, we've seen them utilize the photos. I think the best was talking to Mike, the owner of Pulciano, saying like, all of my friends were saying that they saw me on social media and that they came for a sandwich because they saw my video on the city. So Seeing that feedback directly from the business owner has been the most fulfilling. Because we were a little short-staffed, we kind of slowed down, but now that we have our economic development team, we're really excited to just take it to the next level. And from a communication standpoint, we're really looking to really make this program so robust that we could maybe get a CAPI award for it next year. But the success stories, I mean, they're just writing themselves as we go. Our plan is to at least highlight 2 to 5 businesses per month. So if you do the math, the more and more we continue to do it, the better. So if you know of any businesses, please send them our way. We are more than happy to highlight them and just tell their story and give them good, solid content for them to utilize.
And to the extent you can utilize AI, I know there's a lot of discussion about AI and the pros and cons and the risks, but there are lots of opportunities there. So given a 2-person team, if you can use ChatGPT or some of these other sort of, graphics creators to produce Instagram posts, that would be, I think, really, really great to get the word out again about the city events and programs through the department, as well as marketing for small businesses.
Yes. I think just to add to that, what's great about this program is that, yes, we do have AI and all of these other resources, but this gives it the more human feel. So it allows us to create that connection with the business owner, because our goal is not to just go there, take the content and leave. It's for us to create that bridge and have that connection and know the business owner's name and keep coming back like, hey, Liana, I used all the photos. Can we get more? So we want to be able to come back and retell their story or give them another shout out. So it's the fulfilling part of our job, most definitely.
That sounds like an amazing program. I was just wondering how long the process was, like once you choose the business, like how long it takes for you to like create the content and then post it on social media.
Great. So by the time usually if we could reach out to the businesses in different formats. The first format would be sending them a message through Instagram or Facebook. The other would be with our economic development team. They actually physically show up to the business. We have a flyer where it lays out the entire program and how it works. Let's say it comes from our economic development team. They give us the name of the business owner, the phone number, and then we contact them directly. For us, as soon as we make contact with the business owner, we want it to not wait more than a week. So if we talk to them this week, we want to start filming next week, because the process takes about 2 weeks to edit all of the content and give it to the business owner. So by then you're already on week 3. So it's pretty fast. What takes longer is my part, which is the editing part. But I want to make sure I give them a wide range of images that they could utilize, where there's what we call blank spots for them to add fonts for a banner or for a flyer or anything like that. So 3 weeks is our sweet spot.
Well, I mean, this has been very educational, I think, for all of us. Maybe to touch on our commissioner's point about getting more information, is it possible to have a report back on statistics? I think it'd be nice to see, different social media avenues and sort of what the audience size is. And, explore different channels and, maybe have a sense of to what extent the channels have grown over time. If we use Instagram from 2020 to 2025, how much has the audience grown? And if they have any information about the demographics of that audience, that'd be really important for us to look at,
We can
too.
definitely do that.
Yeah.
Just the number that I can think of right now, over the last year we grew 35% on our social media platform followings. A lot of that growth happened actually during the fires. I think those posts that we were putting out really helped us out, but it was a pretty large growth in just a few days.
Great. Any other questions or comments? Okay, Adrian, do we have any public comments on this item?
We do not.
Okay, so the time for public comment on this item is now closed. Thank you again. Just make sure. Okay, so now we have a spring swim registration recap and summer registration update. Staff will provide the commission with an update on the the new spring swim registration process. Additionally, staff will provide an update on dates for the swim registration session, along with possible aquatics programming for persons with disabilities.
All right. Well, thank you for having me. As mentioned, I have a brief update for you on how our summer and spring swim lesson registration process has gone. So I'm excited to announce that spring swim lessons completely sold out, and 93% of our registrations were taken online, which was pretty amazing. So it was a nice slow afternoon in the office, which I'll take. We opened registration for our residents on March 26th, and within the first hour, we'd sold out most of our tadpoles and our jellyfish programs, but realistically, most of those went in like the first 5 minutes online. Guppies almost completely sold out, and then April 2nd, we opened registration up for our non-residents and sold the one remaining guppy spot. So now we'll be working with all of our staff to try to open up as many spots as we can for those who are on the wait list. We kept it a little bit conservative, just kind of trying to figure out staff availability, but we're working on pulling the rest of them right now for the spring session. The spring session will be running on Saturdays from April 26th through May 24th. So that'll take us off into our summer program. The summer program will begin on June 6th, and that will consist of 5 two-week cycles and 1 Saturday cycle. Now, this year, in order to allow as many families as possible to register, we've broken the summer up into 2 different registration timeframes. So the first one will open on May 19th for our residents, and the second one on June 16th, with residents able to register just the following week. So the goal there is just get as many people as possible in the program, as many different people as possible participating in that. As with spring, we are expecting most of our registrations to take place online. However, we will be available in office on those registration dates to take in-person registration for those who wish to do so. We also need to take in-person registration for our level 2 classes and higher, so we can verify they've successfully passed the lower levels. That way we have people placed in the right spots. So we're looking pretty good for registration. So that's been exciting. We're also working on adding adaptive programming for our swim program. We're going to start there for those with sensory sensitivities. But I know much discussion still has to take place on those programs and what the specific community needs are for those. So as we're ready and as we have those discussions, we'll be able to announce those things more formally to the public. But for now, that's the update on our registration process. And if you have any questions, I would be more than happy to answer them.
Thank you so much for giving us feedback on the registration process using the new system. Was there any feedback that you gathered from the community about using that system? And it sold out pretty quickly, so was anyone sort of, waiting to get online and they were online, but all of a sudden they got dropped or any of those types of hiccups?
I didn't hear anything quite like getting dropped. We did have one family call. She was unable to register. There was just a little checkbox on her account that we had to just check. Civic Rec has been great for just, there's always a checkbox that needs to be checked or unchecked to make our lives easier, and we're kind of working through what those are. So we had that, and then she was able to register just fine. And we had a few people come into the office because they were struggling with creating their online accounts. But a lot of those, from at least the ones I dealt with, a lot of those were more of an issue getting into their email accounts than into Civic Rec. So we were able to help some of them out, trying to get them access to their own accounts so we could get them processed. But overall, I haven't heard any major complaints with regard to the swim lesson registration process. People seem pretty happy to log in. We can pull a transaction report and see the time that registration opened versus the times that people registered. And the vast majority of those were within 1 or 2 minutes of registration actually becoming available, which tells me that people were able to log in successfully ahead of time, create their accounts, get everything squared away. That way they were ready to just snag their spot as soon as it opened up.
And this time around, we had a staggered registration system where residents had early access and non-residents were able to register a week later.
Correct. So
Is that
March
about right?
26th, we was
Yeah.
in the office and online starting at 5:30. So we stayed in the office from 5:30 to 7:30 to help anybody who wanted to come in person. I think we had 2 or 3 families come in within the first 15 minutes, and then nobody came after that. And then that was residents only. And then on April 2nd at 9 o'clock, we were able to take non-residents both online and in the office. We only had 1 spot really left when non-resident opened, and that sold out pretty fast. And now they're starting to add themselves to the wait list. So we did that staggered one, and it worked pretty well. So we'll kind of keep that same format for summer. So it'll be the May 19th and June 16th, which are both Mondays. And then a week and a day later, the residents or the non-residents will be able to register. And it's a week and a day because a week from Monday, May 19th is Memorial Day and we're closed. So we'll just keep that pattern going.
Has this been the easiest process so far, and would you implement this process for the next year?
It has. So this is only my second spring here, but I've used Civic Rec in the past to tremendous success. So as we move forward and as our residents begin to have their own accounts and as they come to be more comfortable with the program, absolutely we'll keep this going.
What kind of information would you need? I know you're just in the beginning talks for the swim for those with disabilities. What kind of information would you need? I guess just city information of how many possible, students would sign up that have disability, or
I'm less worried about how many people will sign up. I know they're out there, and I know there's a need. I think we'll see really as we create the program, we'll see how many people are on a wait list, and that might show us that the need is more or less than what we think it might be. Personally, what I'm looking more for information-wise is to hear from families who have children with these needs to make sure that my understanding of how best to help them matches their own needs. So we'll be working on surveys and having conversations with them, whether we send them out via email or put a survey up online, just to try to get as much feedback from families who actually have that need. I think I have a pretty good idea of the best way to teach these lessons, but I don't want to tell them how their child needs to be taught specifically, if that makes sense. They tend to know their children's specific sensory needs more than I could ever hope to. So really the feedback I'm hoping to get to create those successful programs is simply from families who have the need.
so are you just going to post it online and just kind of say, hey, if this applies to you, please, reply to the survey? Or do you have a list?
Degree.
Do you have a list of students or families that have children on the spectrum?
I don't have a list. So what I did at previous city is we worked with our PIO team, and we created basically a media campaign.
Okay.
And it was, the city is seeking to begin this program. If you have a child, or if you yourself are sensory sensitive, or if there's another specific need, we kind of we ran with two in the past, which got a little convoluted. So I want this one to be separate. We had one that was like sensory sensitive needs, and another one was more focusing on like physical issues. So we tried to keep those separate for now, because the survey results got a little convoluted and harder to follow. So we'd work with PIO to put that out just to the community at large, and then they can provide their feedback, and hopefully we can kind of create a good little conversation going with that specific community, and come up with some good needs.
Okay.
Or Commissioner Brantes, do you know, or are you part of any circle that already is a
Well, I mean,
parents?
yeah, I mean, just with my child at Jefferson, I mean, probably reach out to those in his class, but I was going to mention, would you reach out to the schools and say, hey, can you email the students, the parents, or provide a flyer to the class, the special education classes?
Absolutely. So the schools wouldn't be able to give us details of the families in their care who have these needs, but we have a pretty good relationship with the district.
Okay.
So we could discuss it with them and say, hey, we're launching this program. Can you help us get the word out? And then they can send it out either, school-wide or to the families that they know of that have these needs, or some combination of both.
Yeah.
And they'll have the best way to reach their students, and then they can get the word out that way. And then the students who are in need can reach out to us.
Yeah. Okay.
In the past couple of summers, I know there were some heightened issues with staffing. Do we foresee any of that, for this spring, summer?
We do. We're looking better than we started off last summer. So last summer, we were able to hire a few more staff who are coming back this year. A number of our staff are heading off to college, and so far it sounds like most of them are returning. So we ended last summer in much better shape than we started. So I'm hoping to continue that momentum this year. We should be in better shape at the start of the summer than we were last year. As of today, if all of our lifeguards come back, we have about 18 who will be able to help us teach our programs and such. So if we can hire 2 to 7 more, I'd feel a lot more comfortable. I know we've got a few applications that are still in the works, so we should be better than we were last year, but it's a work in progress.
Yeah, I mean, as someone who works with lots of different staff too, things happen, and sometimes classes will be canceled. And so we're going back to the PIO message, where if a class does need to be canceled, if we can just make sure we just push it out as early in the day as possible, really as soon as you find out, I think that would make it much easier for parents to kind of readjust their schedule, so they're not hauling the whole family out to make it to a swim session only to find out that the gates are closed, And if, if you can hire additional lifeguards or recreation supervisors, if you can make more classes available, I think that would be great. But obviously, you're constrained by budget and time and the labor force dynamics and all of that, so.
Yeah.
Any other questions or comments?
Since this is such a demanding and popular program, do you have any plans on expanding it next year?
The swim lesson program in general?
Yes.
Yeah, the swim lesson program right now is really only constricted by the size of our instructor staff. So the more instructors we can add to the team, the more levels we'll be able to offer, as well as the more people in each session we'll be able to offer. So as we can grow our team, we will grow the program.
Is it part of that growth to offer to younger children? Because right now, what is the lowest age?
The lowest age we'll take in swim lessons is 6 months.
Oh.
I wouldn't go younger.
No, yeah, definitely don't.
We've had parents try to go younger. They're just too little for the water. They get cold. It's rough. So
Okay.
we'll take them as young as 6 months right now. And really at that level, it's just getting them used to being in water.
In the water, yeah.
And a lot of those swim lessons are just teaching parents how to watch your child around the water. So it kind of goes back and forth. So we do offer the young levels as well.
Okay, and those are for the 2 summer sessions as well, I imagine.
Yeah, so all of the summer sessions will have the youngest ones. So we don't tend to offer those in the spring. We'll have parents register for them, and then it gets cold, and then the kids don't get in the water,
Yeah.
and then it's frustrating for everybody.
Right.
Parents will think it's be warmer. I've done it. It'll be warm by spring, and it's not. And now you have a 2-year-old or a 6-month-old with blue lips, and you feel bad. So we tend to just offer those ones in the summertime.
And do you collaborate with the Seagulls for development of lifeguards by chance?
We don't typically. I know the Seagulls have sent us some staff, and quite a few of our staff have been on the Seagulls. And I know George has been teaching some lifeguard training classes as well. But as we need to, we've worked with them as well as Gab High School, and they've both been able to send us a few staff who they think will be ready for the summer.
And I think to further address your question, I think some of the barriers to staffing we've addressed, but there was a time period where they weren't able to be addressed, which led to other potential staff going to nearby cities. But hopefully with the increased pay scale and the flexibility that Andy is able to provide to staff and the creative ways in which he's trying to keep them engaged. And he just worked with staff to attend the career fair over at Gap High School and at Mission High School. So I think that the team is doing everything they can think of to try and capture that audience, because even one person added to that roster of staff is going to make a difference at this point. But we're essentially asking Andy to come up and adjust years of reduced staffing, right? We were impacted by COVID. We were impacted by the exponentially increasing pay rates that other cities were able to accomplish very quickly. We were a bit more conservative in issuing those pay increases. Depending on where you fall on that scale, but I think it served us well in a lot of aspects. But in terms of trying to get to an abundance of staffing to be able to offer, 20 students in one time slot, we're not there just yet. But I think we're making small incremental steps to do kind of what you're alluding to.
Are there any facility improvements we can look forward to this summer?
We've made a few. A lot of our facility improvements have been important, but more on the back end, so it's harder for the public to see. It's like George alluded to earlier. She's an old pool, so it's getting a lot of love, but a lot of them are on the side that the public hasn't seen. I believe we applied recently for a grant, which would be huge. So that could help us either completely rehab the entire facility. So I know Matthew can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we'll hear about that grant like in October, at which point we'll know where those dollars can go that we do have. So if we get the grant, that'll be huge, and then we can talk about the whole remodel from there. And if we don't get the grant, we'll regroup and figure out the best way to make some physical improvements. But right now, the dollars we've been sinking into it to improve the facility are more behind the scenes, and the mechanical room and getting things fixed with plumbing and such like that. So we are making improvements, but you'll see the effect of them, but you might not see them readily when you walk in.
Well, I think plumbing is a big win. To not see overflowing toilets when you step into the changing rooms would be wonderful, knowing that you're stepping in there without your flip-flops on, too. Okay, any other questions or comments about this item?
Yeah, so, are all of the swim lessons held in like the same facility? And
Yes.
if we were to, like you said, expand, and get more staff, would we have like the area to like hold more lessons?
We have enough area now. We could design the programming in such a way that we have our youngest kids swim lessons going on in the shallowest end of the pool. We could run lap swim on the deeper side, and then we can run our more advanced swim lessons over in the deep end as well. So the pool layout right now works pretty well for a lot of what we try to do. Again, we're just limited on the staff. So right now, with limited staff, our focus has been on the younger levels of swimming. You know, we have the seagulls who are able to help with the higher levels. You know, once we get them to that, level 2 or 7 to 8 years old, from us, we know that they're served through the seagulls, so we try to serve our youngest ones. So we try to gear as much of our staffing efforts on the little ones, which both gets them ready to swim and keeps them safer on the water. So as we get more staff, we'll be able to kind of expand into the rest of the pool with more programming as well.
We all know that swim is fun, but so by focusing on the younger kids, are you more so just focusing on safe swim?
Yeah, the essentials is safe swim first. We want to make sure they know how to float. They fall into the water. You can't teach the rest of swimming without got to build on the foundation anyway. And the biggest one is, can you fall into the pool and can you float there on your back? And on the littlest one, sometimes the best thing we can teach them is to lay on your back and scream, which is a great moment to be in the swim lessons. But from the safety aspect, it works really well for them, because if they do have pools at home or they end up in a body of water, they know their first thing they're going to do is lay on their back, and it's fun to scream. So they make a lot of noise, and then someone can get to them. And then as they get a little bit older, we can start working with them on bobbing or kicking or getting themselves back to the wall. So they're fundamentals that keep them safe, but it's also the foundation of what they need to learn how to swim effectively anyway. So it's kind of a combination of the two ideas that meets that goal.
Adrian, do we have any public comments on this discussion item?
We do not.
Okay, the time for public comment on this item is now closed. Thank you so much.
Of course, thank you.
The commission will now present and discuss their ideas for possible programming for neurodivergent residents. Who wants to lead us off, or do you have an introduction to offer?
No, so we included this at the request of the commissions, and it was a formalized agenda item. So if the commission has anything that they'd like to bring forward and present to the fellow commissioners, feel free to do so now, or and then we can take that information back as well and have further discussions and/or see how feasible it would be to implement any of that programming.
Well, Matthew, I went to the event that you sent me the email for. It was out in Rosemead at San Gabriel. I can never remember the full Sepla. But it was for those on the spectrum, and it was actually it was pretty big. I was surprised. I was thinking maybe 5 to 10 tents, but their building, they had at least 20 tents. The police department was out there. And there was a lot of information, a lot of different vendors with their, pitching their services and what they offer for those on the spectrum. And I spoke to the lady who worked with the company to kind of see what San Gabriel could do in terms of something like that. She didn't have quite the information. I gave her my card to see if she can connect me to the person, so I'm kind of waiting on a response for that. But she did. I believe she worked in Downey, she said before. And one program she implemented there was with the police department. So I guess I can reach out to her, but she pretty much gathered information from those that were on Spectrum and kind of gave it to the police department, so if they ever pulled over, there would be, identification that, hey, this person's on the Spectrum. And I guess she mentioned that there was, they put little notes kind of saying how to approach them. I'm guessing it's provided by the family, so that way they know how the individual might react in the presence of the police, because, we've seen the news where it doesn't end well. So I thought that was an awesome little program that she implemented. Also, my son just recently got approved for a regional center, and for those families that have children on the spectrum, Regional Center is the biggest vendor out there, and they offer all types of services. So I'm trying to work with them to see what we could do with the city as well. See if they can help plan something, or maybe help with a weekend class or something like that. So that one I'm just barely getting my foot started with. Yeah, so that's all I have.
Actually, I think just basing it on the conversations tonight, for example, what Andy said and what Ileana Flores mentioned earlier, I think the gap is really the recognition of specific organizations. Because, for example, earlier there was an opportunity to, okay, let's create a program, and the PIO can reach out and create a campaign, but they do not know who to reach out to. So that's where the gap is. And then I asked you earlier, hey, is there a circle that you are currently on? And it seems like there isn't an established one. So I think in terms of gap, in terms of development, it would have to be establishing that group first. And then when that is in, that's when it's easier to communicate and get that information, and then it grows outwards. So which means if there would be a PIO campaign, it'll be like, hey, anyone who has a child or a family member in the spectrum, create a group for it, right? Be it just a chat group or an actual meetup. And then it'll be now easier for anyone to create a program for them to be able to reach out to. And it's easier for other families with family members in the spectrum to be able to relate to, because now it'll come in as exponential. Because right now we're trying to hit blank spaces and we don't even know if it'll be effective, right? So I think that's how it's a good program to start with, is to start with something that's more internal, get that established, and then we move outward. So I think that's a good start.
Yeah, no, I was thinking of starting a Facebook group, maybe just for San Gabriel, because I've seen others for Pasadena and just abroad, San Gabriel Valley, but nothing for San Gabriel. So I was thinking of starting some kind of group for those parents, and maybe we can connect and kind of build from there, and go from there, and then I'll have information, more defined information. And yeah, like I said, we can go from there. So maybe I'll go that route.
I think in terms of the importance to the city, if you, in your research, whether you're going to an event that targets students with ASD, or in your online research, if you can find funding opportunities for the city, any opportunities to receive a grant so that we can actually host a program or develop a program that's targeted to this community, I think that's going to go over a lot better, and it'd be much more likely to have a program than if there wasn't any funding to back it up. So
Yeah, I'm hoping once I hear back from the regional center, because like I said, they're huge, and that's where everyone goes, and they have a ton of vendors. Hopefully they might have more information. But now you just reminded me, Ileana, she said she worked with Duarte, and I know they have an event for those on the spectrum. So maybe maybe she worked with it, or she might have knowledge, or might know someone there to kind of get some more insight on that as well.
if they could sponsor that event here, for
Or
instance.
see how they got traction to
Right.
have that event for the city, so. Oh, I'll follow up.
Question for you on the regional center. Do you know which regional center is the one that serves?
East Los Angeles.
East Los Angeles.
Yeah, which is funny because theirs is in Alhambra.
Okay, great.
I thought the one was in El Monte, the regional. The one that services San Gabriel is in El Monte, no?
But no, ours, the one at least we got is in Alhambra, right on Fremont, where the college is, that little. So yeah, they're right there.
We'll reach out to them as well. This was quite a while ago. Andy and I were on a call with a representative from, I believe it was a different regional center, and it sounds like theirs was very established, and they were always looking for partners. So I I don't believe it was the East Los Angeles Regional Center,
Or
but
Pomona.
I believe that's who it was.
That's
yes.
the other, yeah. Most of the things I see is Pomona, so I thought initially we would be assigned to there, but no, we were on this side, so.
Okay.
But they work the same. We were in, when we lived in the valley, we were at North, they call it North Los Angeles Regional Center, so they have it there, so.
Great. So we'll reach out and see if there's any partnership opportunities. We receive some calls where students are, or youth are part of a regional center and they want to take classes with us, but a lot of the regional centers pay after. So that's somewhat problematic for us. And we haven't quite come up with a solution around that. I don't think a lot of cities have a solution for that, because essentially you're rendering services and then hoping that someone's paying, which doesn't tend to work out very well. But potentially the more local regional center has a way around that. I know some of the regional centers, if you're like a partner, they're able to pay the entity for the services in advance, which is how we expect everyone else to register. So we'll look into that a little bit further to see what that partnership could look like.
Yeah, like I said, we just finally got on board. It took a while, so I need to see how the process is as well
Yeah,
in
that's
terms
great.
of just the services in general and see if, it seems like that's how it is. They pay afterwards, but, I can ask more questions on that as
Great,
well, too.
that'd be awesome.
Do we have any existing facilities, whether indoors or outdoors, that lends itself to a sensory sensitive group?
Sure. So it depends on what you would be looking for, but we do have several facilities. Well, okay. We have two indoor facilities that are available for public use, or available for us to host items. I think the Padilla Room and the Grapevine Room tend to be our go-to for programming where it's more registration-based, or programs where there's less interruptions because they're more secluded rooms instead of the community center where they're all kind of interconnected. So it's hard to have a quieter space in those areas. So those are usually free in the evenings unless we have contract classes, but most of our contract classes are in the community recreation center. So yes, to answer your question.
What about as far as like parks or playgrounds or anything like this that has sensory areas or is even fully inclusive, like
Yeah.
I mean, that would be more physical disability, the fully inclusive, but just thoughts.
No, you just remind me, I actually talked to an old friend from high school who I saw on Facebook. Her son is on the spectrum, about the same age, so we connected, and she had mentioned, and I'm assuming it's probably a grant, but there's a company that will build parks for those, not only on the spectrum, but with disabilities. It's, I forget the correct term, but it's
not
for everyone to play.
Okay. It's not Kaboom, right? Who made this one in Smith Park?
No.
Oh.
No, that name doesn't sound, I'm not 100% sure, but Kaboom does not sound familiar, but
Okay.
I guess they go around and they build playgrounds that are accessible for everyone to enjoy. So you mentioning that,
Yeah.
I can look more into it and see how that works. But then now I'm wondering, space-wise, if we would even have it. I guess if we get approved or I get more research, we can cross that line, but there's a company out there that would build.
It's definitely a growing industry trend to see more and more inclusive playgrounds. I mean, that starts with everything from the surfacing that you're on to also the equipment that you purchase, right? And it does make sense for every city to have at least one so that, you're serving those within your population, right? So if you have 7 or 8 parks, to have one that's easily accessible. It tends to usually be, like in Monterey Park, it's their biggest park. Garvey Park is the one that has the fully inclusive playground. So it's just something that's worth considering. Of course, the next time you're looking at a renovation is, what can we do to serve our diverse community?
And so the grant that Andy was alluding to earlier, part of the grant application was to tear out the playground to the northeastern portion of the park at Smith, and replace it with an inclusive playground. So we don't know what that looks like yet because the grant was vague. It didn't say, okay, this is the exact element that the playground will have, and the grant application didn't request that.
Right.
So those types of details would be worked out if the grant was to be
Yeah.
received. I think on the scale of costs, it's on the lower end compared to anything at the pool, so that's a plus.
Right.
So it could potentially be plucked out later because the current playground isn't in the same state as the rest of our playgrounds.
Sand playground is decrepit.
Yes.
To be fair, I mean, no offense to your department,
That is
but
quite all right.
it is very much in need. My daughter got pink eye at that playground
Oh, wow.
from pouring sand in her own eye, so it's not like she was doing toddler things, but then the whole family ends up getting it.
Mm-hmm.
So, for that reason, nobody likes sand, but it's also just not inclusive.
Right.
And then the attempt to be inclusive is just a bunch of potholes in the rubber.
Mm-hmm.
So that's great to hear that it's a part of it. I know grants are always a long shot,
Mm-hmm.
but if you need counsel on what it looks like to build an inclusive playground, obviously I can help with that.
That would be great.
Yeah.
Yes. Most likely, we would pull on both you and Vice Chair Barantes to provide your expertise in that area, and then kind of, I think that the playgrounds that people are more familiar with are more physically accessible. But I'm sure that there's companies that are looking at it from a sensory perspective as well. But I think having someone who has more hands-on knowledge and less of a clinical perspective is appreciated, because things sometimes work in theory, but not as great in practical, in a practical aspect. So we would appreciate both perspectives.
Is this grant a CDBG grant?
It is not. It is the outdoor recreation. Oof, I don't remember off the top of my head. I'd have to look it up. What was that?
Legacy program.
Oh, Outdoor Recreation Legacy Program Grant.
Okay.
Thank you, Rebecca.
Is this in the crosshairs of the Trump cuts, or? Sounds like it
should
might not
not. It is a
be.
state
Okay.
grant, so everything should proceed as planned. It is less competitive than some of the other grants that we've applied for.
Okay.
There are less cities that are qualified for this grant. You have to typically be, one of the primary factors is that you have to be a city that has very low access to green space, or large acreage of green space, which is San Gabriel. So we are fortunate in this aspect that we lack green space. And so we kind of checked every single box that they were looking for in terms of an organization for funding. So we are hoping that we did a good enough job on the application to sell the project and sell the need for the renovation and the new playground at Smith.
That's wonderful. I'm keeping my fingers crossed that the improvements to the swim facility slide through, as
you.
well as the improvements to the playground as well. Do we have any public comments on this discussion item? Are there any other comments or questions from our commissioners? No? Okay. All right. So let's move on then to events and program updates. This is where staff will provide an update on the planning process for certain programs and events.
So our next events are going to be the pancake breakfast and egg hunt with our Kiwanis of San Gabriel. So they are our partner agency. They will be doing the pancake breakfast component, and then the city takes care of the egg hunt, and then booking a lot of the other vendors like the DJ that will be there. They have been with us for several years and are a fantastic partner. They take everything from start to finish on the pancake breakfast, so from soliciting sponsorships to offset their costs, to making the purchases for all of the supplies, to making the actual pancakes and sausage and passing all of that out. They take care of everything. And that is always the Saturday before Easter. That's the same day from 7 to approximately 11. The flyer will say later, but that's around when it usually starts wrapping up. And then the next event would be Play Day, which will take place in May. Play Day celebrates the history of the La Laguna Playground. So you'll see that some of the other cities also celebrate Play Day, but ours kind of has a bit of a spin on it because we do have the historic La Laguna Playground, which is turning 60 this year. So the event will be slightly larger. The welcome ceremony will be a bit more robust because it'll be thanking some of the funders that helped make the renovation and preservation possible. There will be a DJ present, several crafts. And then we are currently working on a couple of additional add-ons to make it extra special, but those aren't finalized yet, so I don't want to get anyone's hopes up. So I will have more information at the next meeting. Any questions on those two events?
Well, just in regards to the La Laguna at the Victor Lugo Park, I know I emailed you about that parking lot being blocked off. Do we
Yes.
have a date as to when the repavement can, how long that will take?
We do not. Unfortunately, they've hit kind of roadblock after roadblock with that space. The main one that they've been hitting is the removal of water from the space. So every time they remove the water, it has been raining and then piles back up. And so haven't been able to actually finish the project. So they were able to remove most of the asphalt. Part of what's causing some of the pooling is that they need to level it so it doesn't cause as many dips as what you saw before, instead of just paving back over, and then you would end up with the same kind of pothole-filled parking lot that we had before. So they're being very methodical about it, but unfortunately we don't have an exact time frame. So I can reach out again tomorrow, now that everything's been dry and clear for a while, and see if they have anything further.
If we can maybe put a notice on the website,
Sure.
the Parks and Rec's website, and say the parking lot is closed and TBD on when those improvements will be finished. You know, and just in general, if there are, park facilities that are not accessible by the public, if there can just be, some sort of signage that says, we know it's broken, we're waiting to fix it.
Sure.
That would be helpful.
What's the date again for that play day?
It is, let me double check, make sure I'm giving you the correct date. It is the 17th of May.
17th of May. Nice. I mean, that's such a historic playground. That's so cool that you guys are using that to, to host the event. And that actually was the playground that came to mind too, because it is so spacious, so open. Like you could have something going on over here and over here and over here if it was for those with sensory needs. So that's where like my mind went to originally. If you were to host an outdoor space, you could also kind of block it off easily since it is back in the corner if it wanted to be somewhat exclusive. And it's just kind of got all the trees going around it too. So, but that's great. Yeah, the 17th. Thank you.
Of course. And then by next meeting, we should have everything finalized for the summer series. I believe I've shared it, but if I haven't, I'll do it now. So there will not be a summer kickoff event. We will be reallocating some of those funds to offset some of the increase in costs that everyone is seeing right now. But otherwise, there will still be all of the summer concerts and movies between Vincent Lugo Park and the concerts over at the Mission Playhouse. But we'll have the full lineup by the next meeting.
Well, I do hope the parking situation works itself out then, because there's so much that happens in the Victor Lugo Park for the summer, as well as the Play Day, which is coming up in less than a month now. So
Right.
there is parking on the streets. It's just if you're anticipating a bigger event for the 60th anniversary, then we want to make sure there's places for people
Right.
to drop off their cars. Any other updates?
Yeah, so just a couple of other ones. There is an art exhibition, which is something that it's the first time that we've offered it. It started off as a need to or want to highlight our senior artwork. So we have a senior group that meets every Friday at the Community Recreation Center, but they didn't have a definitive way to showcase all of the great work that they do. If you've ever been in there, it is something that you would purchase and hang at your home. It's not, this is not kind of beginner level artwork by any means. No, they are fantastic. And so Desiree, who is our part-time recreation specialist, took this on and has done a fantastic job. There's, excuse me. So that was her initial intent, was just to showcase these senior artworks. After further discussion, we wanted to make it available to the broader community, as well as make sure that there was enough people attending, right? So by opening it up to the broader community, you are getting a broader reach instead of just the seniors that want to showcase their artwork. She has since received, I believe, about between 40 and 45 submissions, and each one of those have about 2 to 3 pieces of artwork that they will be displaying. It will be taking place this Wednesday, thank you, April 9th at the Mission Playhouse lobby. There will be music, refreshments, and then, of course, artwork. There won't be any sales of artwork, but there will be artists passing out their information. So if you wanted to find out more about the artist or how you could purchase one, you could do that after the event. But it should be a pretty spectacular kind of new offering for the community.
What time does that start?
It starts at, one moment. It is 6 to 8 o'clock.
You said that the artworks are up for sale, so about how much will they sold for?
Oh, sure. So they will not be for sale during the event. If you wanted to pursue that with the artist, you could do that after the event, but there won't be any sales during the event.
Okay, and it's just the artist selling it, and then the money goes to them.
So that would be completely up to them. We don't encourage or endorse any of the artists, but we do allow them to showcase themselves at this event and showcase the diversity of mediums that are available within San Gabriel. But as in terms of sales, that would be between any member of the public and an artist.
And are the artists from the city, or is it just anyone who wants to share their artwork?
Sure, I'd have to double check with staff, but we've primarily been targeting San Gabriel residents, but it was not exclusive to San Gabriel residents displaying their artwork.
Any other updates? Okay. Ms. Adrian, do we have any public comments on this item?
We do not.
Okay. The time for public comment on this item is now closed. Commission members will now discuss items on the work plan. If anyone wants to lead us off. I think having the PIO show up today and giving us a presentation was a really good step forward in terms of checking off the remaining items on our work plan, because, without the information that she has, I think it's a little hard for us to talk about media outreach, to talk about engaging different parts of the city, because it's all very much driven by PIO or what the department staff can craft together, given the limited budget and time and all of that. Is there anything in particular that we want to highlight from the work plan that we can already check off, or we want to maybe discuss more fully next meeting?
I think the PIO provided a lot of information. I don't know what else we would.
Well, I think we are, like I said, Commissioner Dong kind of hit that right in the head. It's more like a lot of the efforts now are very foundational, which is great. For example, understanding the population, how we can reach them, even the platform that is being used, for example, for registration, because it can be a platform for feedback. Because, like, one of the items in the work plan is to come up with programs, right? And just listening to everything that Andy presented and Ileana presented. There's a lot in there, and considering what the team already is doing, I think now being more equipped with what we need to know is very important in us trying to figure out what other programs, because now, for example, I feel like our next steps would be, after we get that information from the PIO, we can also make it a conscious effort to look at feedback and use the new platform, for example, registration, or all the programs that are running as we can be more active in asking for feedback, and that's when we will now be able to streamline and understand what we wanted to do. Because, for example, just looking at the pages of the programs, this is a lot. This is a lot to run. Now, if we look at which ones are really effective or not, that's one thing that the team would be able to help us on. And then which ones we can reach and which ones we can't is also part of the information the PIO team would be able to help us on. And that's when we'll be able to form it. So I think we are making good strides in our work plan. That's what I would say, even in terms of just formulating and trying to figure out what the next steps would be in terms of thinking about what programs to suggest.
Yeah, I agree. I think we could be more tactical in terms of how we deploy resources and knowing a little bit more about the demographics we're serving, whether it's for families with, students who have disabilities and forming a group, and knowing what that number is in San Gabriel, and sort of then being able to target resources, knowing what the population size is, as well as knowing, the population who are underinvested in because they don't speak the language, and so they would need to, have more media that is, sort of engages them in their first language, whether that's Spanish or Chinese, right? And kind of understanding if maybe having more flyers or more media in that language might bring more people from South San Gabriel up to events too. I think having more information will help us make those decisions in terms of allocating resources. But I also want to say that, they are just a two-person team, that we can't just rely on what she can provide us, because honestly, they have very limited bandwidth as well. So to the extent that we can continue to come up with ideas about how to target diverse audiences, the better off we will be.
That's right.
I think in terms of the two items that we still have on our work plan, we are now exploring program offerings for persons with disabilities. We talked about that today, so thank you for putting that on the agenda. Providing new programs. To Commissioner Rodriguez's point, let's look at the data first before we think about what programs make sense based on demographics. I would like to see more effort being made on the sort of connecting different parts of the city. I don't know if we have a good sense of how to do that yet. And, definitely, we're halfway through the year now. And so I forget, are we redoing the work plan this year, or are we waiting until next year?
Yeah, so
What
I
was our
think
decision on that?
the direction from the commission was to make it an ongoing document. So if at any point you wanted to scrap anything, you could, or if you wanted to just add a few key things, you could do that at any meeting as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
We could consider, if we want to revamp the work plan next meeting, I think a couple of the commissioners, or Commissioner Lotz, I believe this is like your penultimate meeting, so if there is something that you want to. Well, yeah, so this one would be your penultimate, and so the next one would be your last one. If we want to have just 15 minutes to check in on the work plan to see if we do want to throw any new things on it, or if we're okay with the way it is. We can do that now as well, but realizing the time is 8:10, so I don't know if we want to have just this discussion about the work plan now. But maybe we could do that while you're still with us and you have some fresh ideas about playground space and anything else that we could kind of consider as a work plan to be on the work plan for the balance of this year.
Yeah.
Any other items about the work plan, comments or questions or ideas that we should table until the next discussion? Okay. All right. Adrian, do we have any public comments on this discussion item?
We do not.
Okay. So the time for public comment on this item is now closed. Each commissioner may address the Community Services Commission and public on matters of general information and or concern. This is also the time for commissioners to report on conferences and or meetings they have attended, starting with Commissioner Lotz.
No, nothing comes to mind on that. I just kind of want to reemphasize that, I think this whole conversation again, especially it being personal to the commission, I do, hope things pan out for that inclusive playground, and again, just want to offer support however we can.
Commissioner Rodriguez?
Nothing specific. I think, well, especially it's been very busy the first quarter, so no events, at least from the last ones that I attended. It was just the Lunar Festival, but I think that was pretty much it. Yeah.
Vice Chair Barantes?
No, just the one event I mentioned earlier. That was probably the only one I attended. So I kind of gave a brief talk on that, so good.
Great, okay. And our other commissioners, the teen advisory group?
No, I think everything is great. I think I really like how our events have been so far, especially the Lunar New Year one. Aside from the minor adjustments we would like to make, or like any improvements, but aside from that, I think everything is going really well.
I have not attended anything recently either, but I think everything's going well as well. So I really like the Lunar New Year event. So yeah.
Great. I don't have anything to report either on this item. And finally, we have staff comments, and staff members have the opportunity to address the commission and public on matters of general information and or concern.
Nothing tonight. Thank you.
Great. So the next regular Community Services Commission meeting will be held on Monday, May 5th, 2025 at 6:30 p.m. Information regarding matters to be considered at each meeting will be available on the Friday before the Community Services Commission meeting on the city's website at www.sangabrielcity.com. This regular meeting is now adjourned